Hey guys, it's Josh here. Welcome to interview number 7 of my series, Scaling Your Divi Web Design Business. In this interview, I got a chance to chat with Geno Quiroz of Monterey Premier, based in California. And he, of course, is the founder of all the original Divi tutorials under Quiroz.co. And we talk about how he started that business, how he got actively involved in the Divi community, and how that spurred an entire business for him with Monterey Premier, and how he got into web design for clients, local clients in the area, and now how he's scaling that. We talk a lot about Jerry, who is kind of his protege, who came up alongside him, is now running a lot of the business to free Geno up to do what he loves and to do best. So we talk about that whole experience. You'll be able to pull a lot of insight from that if you're wanting to grow your business. And then we also talk about some of the tools and processes they use to make sure they keep everything on track, on budget, make sure they're keeping happy clients. And we talk about how he's managing a lot of different things and staying sane at the same time. So you're going to love this interview. Geno's awesome. If you're familiar with the Divi community or you've been in the community for a while, the man needs no introduction. So definitely enjoy this talk and let me know how it helps your business. Geno, thanks so much for taking some time and chatting with us today, man.
Hey, Josh, glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Well, so you've been an inspiration to me since I got into the Divi community at the time we were recording this about a year and a half ago. And I kind of came into it on the tail end of you having already set up Monterey Premier, your tutorials, which, you know, I joked a while back that I used to bookmark them, and then I stopped bookmarking them because I just went to your site and looked through all the Divi tutorials and stuff. But, you know, you have a very impressive setup. I think most everyone in the Divi community probably knows you and what you do. But for those who are maybe newer in the community and haven't heard about you, why don't you just give us kind of a snapshot of you know, what you do and where your businesses are right now?
Sure thing. I've been working with Elegant Themes now since 2012, just before they launched Divi. So I've been pretty familiar with their themes and how they work, and started my business, which was a freelance web designer and several other things, accounting, bookkeeping, trying to start my own business, become a freelancer. And when Divi came out, I jumped right in, got very involved with the new community that was forming around this new product. And at the same time, my web design business was starting to grow. And one of the things I found is that there was a lot of open space for providing tutorials, providing tips, tricks, and tweaks to the Divi theme, which at that time was very limited. I mean, I wouldn't say limited, but there are several options that are in it now that just weren't in there then, and required CSS and some customization. And anyways, long story short, those tutorials picked up and started to gain a lot of traffic, started to get a lot of regular users using those tutorials. And because of that, being there at the beginning, it helped me become an authority on Divi, and we began to get a lot of leads from Divi users. And as that happened, web design, pretty much the web design side of my business really took up all of my time. So we launched Monterey Premier. At first it was just Quiroz.co, which was me as a consultant.
Okay.
And then in 2000, I want to say 15, we decided to launch a separate business called Monterey Premier. And the focus would be 100% web design and development and other web services. And so we launched that, and shortly thereafter, in 2016, towards the end of 2015, we started to jump into the world of third-party products, and then we started to build child themes. Then we opened up a marketplace, and the rest is history. Now, Monterey Premier is my main business. Quiroz.co is home to our tutorials. And we now have a marketplace as well with several Divi products in there, as well as other people's products who sell on MontereyPremier.com.
Right. Yeah, I know I've got a couple of my layouts on there right now.
Yes, you do.
So one of my questions to kind of kick us off here, Geno, when you started Monterey, did you have an initial intention of scaling that, or did you just kind of, create that because there was a need and it just kind of escalated from there?
No, the whole plan was to grow it into an agency,
okay,
and eventually into a large agency. That had always been the dream and goal of Monterey Premier.
Gotcha. Now, so how big, it's been a while since we've connected. If you can just kind of give us a snapshot of everything you're managing right now, because you've got some blog writers, right, that are blogging on the site, if I recall.
Yeah, so we do a number of different things now. Monterey Premier has evolved into a number of web design services. We now do social media management. We do monthly maintenance packages. We do products, and we do services and a lot of consulting. We've also opened up the blog to be a multi-author blog, much like, say, Huffington Post or even Elegant Themes, in that we now invite authors to write on anything that's related to work life and home life balance. We call it engaging work life. And the reason being is twofold. One, I really wanted to get into managing a blog with multiple authors and multiple topics and categories. It was a great experience for me, SEO wise, understanding writing techniques, understanding SEO. Then the other purpose too was I didn't want to write about Divi, necessarily just Divi or just web design, because I want my blog to reach out to people who need web design services or need social media services. And so writing about those topics are going to attract other designers and developers, but that's not my target audience for Monterey Premier.
Right.
Monterey Premier, I want to reach people who are office managers for an entirely different industry. They're work-at-home moms, they are bloggers, or they're people that would need one of our services. And so it's kind of twofold. It was very strategic in the planning process of creating that and opening that up. So now we have various authors, and we've made it to several of those lists that for people who are looking to get their writing articles out there in the world. And so we get hit 2 or 3 times a day for people that want a guest blog on Monterey Premier. So we no longer are paying people to, like we did when we first launched it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So now a lot of our authors are doing it for exposure.
Gotcha. So with Monterey Premier, of course, I know it's separate, of course, from your Divi Tutorials. I was going to say, is your primary intention to sell your web design services? I mean, I guess it could be quite a few things, right? Because you're selling a lot of Divi child themes and products through there. Of course, you're offering web design services, and I was just looking, like you said, you kind of escalated that with social media services, your maintenance plans and things like that. Do you have a focus with any of that, or do you just take it all as it comes?
Yes, our focus and our primary channel for revenue has been and always will be the web design services. That is the core of Monterey Premier. All future and current in-house employees will be for that focus. Because that's something we don't want to outsource. That's something we don't want to move out. That's our bread and butter, you might say. So everything really everything else on Monterey Premier is there to complement that service, including the marketplace, is there to complement our core business, which is web design and development. And that always will be for us.
Gotcha.
That's what we enjoy doing. That's where the higher margins are. And that's basically what we love doing the most.
Awesome, Geno. So let me ask you this too, since with Monterey Premier, you have the child themes and the Divi stuff. Are you glad that you mixed your web design company with the child themes and Divi related stuff all together? Because I know for me, a lot of my clients were confused. A lot of my clients don't even need to know what Divi is if they're not going to manage their site. And I have a lot of clients that are like, what the heck is this Divi thing? Are you glad that you did that, or are there some cons to how you have that set up,
No, I am glad we did it. The reality is a majority of our clients are already familiar with Divi, or they're Divi users. Okay. And so we do local marketing, not very much, and we do get found. We do a little bit of Google advertising, but I would say 95% of our clients are coming from the Divi community. So really what I like about that is, a lot of the people coming into our marketplace eventually hire us for something. If they're coming to shop, they may be experienced web designers or developers, But eventually, when they hit a snag or need something that's above their experience level, they reach out to us for the services. So having that marketplace, it not only does it bring traffic and awareness to all our services, it keeps us top of mind in the Divi community. And so it's been very beneficial for us. Now, initially when I launched Monterey Premier, it's because I thought I had all my eggs in one basket, and that's Divi customers. And so Monterey Premier was meant to target Monterey, San Jose, San Francisco, to get outside of the Divi community, but they just followed along. And so I said, let's go ahead and launch the marketplace and let's tie everything in together.
Okay.
So we do get some people that are confused with the Divi and how that works, but once I get on the phone with them and explain the history, it's almost like I have them sold now, because they're working with somebody who does so much more than just design, and it sort of adds a whole new level of authority for even people who don't know what Divi is.
Right, yeah, and that's what's so interesting about our businesses is there's no right or wrong way to set it up or how to integrate it. And I know for me, I'm kind of opposite as you, to where I've had In Transit Studios since 2010, fall 2010. And so now that I'm getting more into the Divi community, on my end, I'm kind of glad I separated my personal stuff with my joshhall.co, just because it is my personal brand. And like I said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. But since I didn't have that authority in the Divi community, I feel like I'm kind of gaining now with some trust and tutorials and things like that. I think I'm glad that I separated at this point, just so I could keep it more of that personal brand. But I think that's really interesting, to where you kind of coming in from the opposite end, to where you started with Divi but then merged into the web design business going local, and how it's worked out. Like, it can work out both ways, which is really empowering, because there's not a right or wrong way to do that.
Yeah. And it's all sort of just timing on when I started the business and the tools I was using. So really, if it wasn't for the tutorial website and that following that came from that, it might be a whole different ballgame for me.
Right, yeah, man, because you were one of the, I don't know how it looked in the Divi community at first, but obviously you're one of the main authority figures in the Divi community, particularly for tutorials and stuff like that. So yeah, that's really interesting how that kind of opened up a whole nother, section of business for you with Monterey Premier. So you jumped on that. If you would, Geno, can you tell us kind of, how many people you're managing, or are you doing like subcontract work, 1099, or do you have any part-time kind of employees with Monterey Premier?
Subcontract still. Everybody's on subcontract. Right now, it's my main person is Jerry, and Jerry works about 20 to 30 hours a week with Monterey Premier. His full-time gig is being a pastor at a church, and believe it or not, he spends like 60 hours a week doing that stuff. So how he squeezes in time for us is crazy, and we're pretty stoked. But Jerry has taken on a whole level of management with Monterey Premier. We do have some independent contractors that we work with for SEO, for content, for blogging, and doing some of our social media management. We don't do any of that in-house per se. That's all subcontracted out. And so right now there's a team of, in addition to Jerry, there's about 4 independent subcontractors that we work with on a regular basis.
Okay. So I'm trying to remember Jerry's Divi Nation episode, which Jerry's awesome. And of course, you guys have the Jedi plugin, which I'm going to be using when I get into doing some child themes and stuff here.
Cool.
How did you meet him? How did that come about? I'm curious about the hiring process, even for subcontractors, because of course, with the Divi Facebook groups, there's a huge opportunity to meet people and collaborate there. But it sounds like you guys are on a whole nother level. How did that relationship begin?
Yeah, that was definitely a God thing for sure. I have worked with several developers within the Divi community in the past, but there was always some kind of issue, right? I just couldn't find the right match to work with me. And I've worked with folks overseas, and I had some good relationships. All relationships ended well, but it wasn't quite what I needed. I needed somebody who was really willing to come in, that was a self-taught, but at the same time willing to adapt to the way I do things and the way I write code and my expectation level on what we're giving to the client. Part of what we provide to the client is education in many ways, whether it's the coding or WordPress in general or SEO in general. And so I needed that. I needed somebody who can code in the way I do, where it's easy to explain to people what we did. And so I'd been looking around, and Jerry's actually a friend of a friend who is also a pastor. This friend of mine is the pastor at a church where I was ordained at, and I was attending when we were in Watsonville, California. And he calls me up one day and says, "Hey, Jerry is the pastor at the church he used to attend before he came up here and planted a church." And so he tells me, "Hey, remember Jerry? I told you about Jerry? You met Jerry?" And so yeah. So he's looking for some work, and he does his own website, and he's really technical, and he's into that kind of stuff, but maybe you can give him a shot. Because I told Dylan that I was always struggling to find help. I plateaued, basically.
Okay.
I couldn't do anything, and that had been for about a year now where I couldn't grow. And so I'd been looking for about a year for that right person. And basically leads were coming in and I couldn't answer. I just didn't have time to answer them. So there was potential business growth that I couldn't get to. And so I gave him a call and I said, "Hey, talk to him." He sounded interested. He wasn't sure what kind of work he was going to do, but he didn't want to be distracted from being a pastor, so he was going to just go find some part-time gig somewhere. And I said, "Well, let's give this a shot. I can't guarantee you hours or anything like that, but let's give this a shot. Maybe you could start by going through my tutorials and helping me address some of those comments that I get."
Okay.
And so within a week, he had sent me a link to a Divi site he built. He just jumped in head first and just started to learn Divi. And I was impressed by his desire to just jump right in and figure it out himself.
Probably self-motivation too, right? That's got to be such a pleasure to see.
When you come across somebody like that, man, it's a lot of fun and very encouraging. And so, he said he jumped into the world of Genos.co tutorials, and for every question that came up, he'd go through the tutorial, figure out what the problem was, and then help these people. And so, as Jerry would call it, it was like the Genos Divi University, because after about 3 months of doing that, he was familiar with Divi, he was familiar with my tutorials, he was familiar with my style, and my style of approaching code and CSS. Of course, he's gone way past that now, and I'm trying to keep up with him. Yeah. But so immediately, after a couple of months, the hours began to increase, and I began to have him help me with some of our technical support and other questions that came up. He began to take in all brand new emails. He also has a sales side to him, and his customer service is great. It's amazing. People are just love him, and the responses were great. So he took over all incoming email, and then we got our first opportunity where I could send him a PDF of a product. We have one client that sends us PDFs, and we just build them out, and they're one of our white label clients.
Oh, okay.
And so his coding got to the level where he said, "Let's see you build this page," and he was able to do it in the style that I appreciate, with the structure and the commenting of the CSS. And so I gave him that client. So they basically just sent stuff directly to him, and he'd bust out 2 or 3, websites a month for them.
Wow. And
now he became gold because now these are billable hours. Mm-hmm. And so now he does everything. We still kind of tackle the incoming stuff, but he's now my lead developer. And, when it comes to design, I can just focus on the design projects where I'm building the design out. And any of the functional stuff, we move over to him, transition to him, and he takes care of all functionality and that type of stuff. And whenever we get clients that have a PDF design, he's able to tackle those. So that's pretty much how he became sort of my general manager and lead project developer. And we don't do any outsourcing for that anymore. Everything goes to him. He loves to get in there and figure things out.
That's awesome. So since we're both Star Wars fans, I can safely say you were once the master and Jerry has now become the master.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Did you? Wow, that's fascinating, man. And it seems like I know I was talking with John Wooten with Superfly, and he has Jake, who he works with, and that's kind of his guy. It's like somebody who was kind of an apprentice, and then he was kind of in that mentor role. And honestly, thank goodness you had your tutorials there. Think of how much time you saved yourself, Geno, with having to sit down and train him. And then if somebody were to work with you for a while and then take off, gosh, you could waste 20, 30, 40 hours or even more training people. And we didn't talk about this, but you kind of reaffirmed what I'm doing right now. One of the reasons I'm doing my tutorials is not to step on the toes of anyone else in the Divi community, but it's to kind of get out the way that I do things, which we all do stuff a little bit differently. There you can do, you can achieve effect a few different ways. And so not only, it's a win-win for me, because not only do I love giving back to the Divi community from what I've learned so far, but when I start getting into that position where you're in, I'm going to have a nice catalog of tutorials. So when somebody says, hey, how do you add a button to the menu? I can say, oh, here's my tutorial, or check out Geno's tutorial, and then it's it kind of works out from there. So I feel reaffirmed in what I'm doing because, right now it's not paying the bills for me, the Divi stuff, but I know it's going to lead to a lot of good places here in the very near future. So that's great to hear. Now, how did you go about pricing with him? Did you kind of just let him, did you do like a retainer, or was it kind of per project, and did you let him pick a rate, or did you say like, hey, it's going to be so and so an hour, to start?
I let him tell me what he was looking for, and so we kind of went from there. And, it was well within the range I was looking for.
Okay.
Wasn't sure initially if I would be able to afford it, but because of his ability to learn and be independent and self-manageable, his discipline and schedule, I never expected to have a contractor who gives me his hours pretty much and checks in every day, and that, as an independent contractor, you have the freedom to work whatever hours you want, and that's always been a struggle. And so I was fortunate in that Jerry was like, okay, I'm here, Monday, Tuesday, these hours and these hours, and basically giving me 5 days a week, even if a couple of those days were half days. And that was, to me, like an amazing deal. And so as soon as possible, as soon as we could, we upped that rate. And so we take a look at it every year. And now we currently have a structure that allows him a little more wiggle room. So instead of hourly, basically what we did is we said, if I could get you to this many hours, and this is what you're looking for a month, that was my goal, is to get him to where he needed to be for his monthly budget.
Gotcha.
And so once we got that figured out, and that's still one of my goals, is to keep that, because we have slow months. December, November, as you know, as every web designer knows, is slow. And some things this summer just kind of seemed to be a weird summer. Everybody was spending money on vacations and going out and new toys, and so the service sector was a little bit lower than most summers. But that's the end goal. And now what we do is, as an incentive in the sales calls, is he has the potential to make a little bit more based on whatever rate we end up closing. As you know, we don't do fixed prices. We do estimates and hourly. We charge hourly.
Oh, okay.
And so we'll give an estimate. It might be like a $5,000 project, but at the end of the day, if they've made a lot of requests and we've gone over the hours, we bill for those hours. We let them know. And so our rates do vary. We work with our clients, and depending on the client, it's very much similar to value-based pricing. And so Jerry has some wiggle room there to earn a slightly higher hourly rate if we close at a higher rate.
Oh, okay.
And
Gotcha.
So he's got sort of a scale with a minimum,
And that's interesting. That's an interesting way to go about the hourly, because I really don't do too much hourly at all. And with fixed pricing on mine, now it helps because I'm a one-man shop right now. But for me, I like the freedom to be able to say, hey, this project's going to be $3,000. Well, if I get it done in 20 hours, that's pretty cool. I'm making almost $150 an hour. Whereas if those projects get into 60, 70, 80 hours, then it just gets smaller and smaller. So I guess I imagine when you're scaling a business and you're thinking about team members, that hourly rate probably has a little more security in it, right? As opposed to doing a fixed rate, and then your designer eats up all your hours, and then you're left with nothing, or you're paying out of your pocket to get something done.
Yeah, it gives us a lot more control over the margins.
Okay, that's a really good point. Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so that's good, and that's a common theme too. That everyone that has hired out somebody who's a little more frequent than just a part-time subcontractor is. It seems like you want to kind of know what they think they're worth, and then you give them that room to grow. Now, on that note, I imagine it's a bit nerve-wracking when you get somebody who's highly self-motivated, because they could potentially learn all your tricks and bail, right? Yeah. I mean, that's probably, and I'm not saying Jerry's going to do that, because he seems like a totally stand-up guy, but that's definitely, potential for anyone in that situation. So did you kind of give him, I mean, it sounds like he's loving what he's doing. Is he kind of focusing on, I guess, two-part question for you, Geno. One, is he focusing on what he loves to do, and you're really giving him room to grow into that, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, Jerry's he's going to do what he loves to do. He'll find time to do what he loves to do, whether it's with us or not. So my mindset has always been that as somebody who's able to provide work, provide opportunities for people to grow, for me, my goal is to find out what they'd love to be doing and help them get there, even if that end game is not with us. Because I find that people, when you work for somebody who cares about what you want to be doing and helps you to get there, you have a much better working relationship with them, appreciation. And so I want to give him the opportunity to, if this is what you'd rather be doing, let's get you there. And so we have that conversation every few months. Okay, are you ready to stop dealing with emails? Do I need to find somebody to do this for you? What do we need to do? And he lets me know. And so we have that. It's sort of non-formal review. I don't need to tell him he's doing great, because he does. I tell him pretty much every time he shows me something new. But we have that review just to kind of see where he's at, where he wants to go. And there's some things he doesn't enjoy doing with us. It's like some of the technical support, or some of those things can get mundane and tedious. But
that's web design, baby.
But yeah, we do have that conversation on a regular basis, and I make adjustments where and when I can. And his main thing is he loves to be developing and building out new things. In fact, he would rather learn how to do it from scratch, even though there's a plugin that does something similar out there, than go in there and see what they do. To him, it's like, I don't want to see what other people have done. I want to do it myself the right way, and hire David to give us an audit. David Elster, to audit it and tell us what we did wrong, and then just build it himself. And so, yeah, I can't get him to take any shortcuts.
Okay. Now, and it sounds like, too, in a case for somebody like Jerry, with him doing that work, you're really taking the majority of the headaches out of, the sales and talking with the client. Now, is he doing any of that, or is he more just doing the work?
Yeah, so we mix it up. He does most of the initial responses to our leads, but we both look at all the leads that come in. Okay. And I take the ones that I really want. Gotcha. I want this client, and so let me take care of this one, because I probably have a little bit more of a sales side than Jerry. So he does close a lot of leads, but we find that when I typically get on the line with them, there's a good chance of closing, because they're familiar with my work. They're Divi users already. Right. So there's a certain response that we usually get when I call them back directly or something like that. Okay. Which has been really cool.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was going to say too, is one mindset that I've tried to have with my scaling ideas here is that you want to give somebody room to grow. But my thing is, if I'm hiring work out to somebody, as long as they do it and they do a good job and they get it done on time and they're having a good time and it's working out, then they can still do their own thing as well. Like if they want to start their own web design business and learn, what I've done and apply it to their life to be able to make more money or replace some crappy part-time job that they're doing, then by all means. And you could do both. You could start something on the side from what you learned by a Josh or by a Geno, take those ideas, start something, but you could still do the work for us potentially. That's kind of one. Yeah. During the research for this series, I've kind of freed my mindset up with that to say, like, you know what, I don't even view that as a competitor. I'm empowering somebody just like I would want to be empowered several years ago. I would have killed for an opportunity to mentor under somebody like you or somebody else to where you could take that next step and roll with it. But without that fear of them taking all your business and jetting off, it's like, shoot, there's plenty of fish in the sea in the web design world. So and it's only escalating.
Yeah, it is. In fact, over the last year, I've been helping him get his business in order. And he's now going out and targeting local businesses in his area for web design. And mostly churches, because he's connected with a lot of different churches and they've reached out to him on a personal level. Hey, Jerry, could you help me with this? And so I did a redesign for his website. So now his website is up to date and it's got a pretty cool new design. So definitely setting him up. So should anything happen, he has the freedom to go out and continue doing website design and development. And now he's got some products under his belt. And, so yeah, definitely.
And, sorry, go ahead, Gina.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I didn't even think about that, but that could be good for slow periods. Like you said, sometimes you have really good months, sometimes you don't have a great month. It's just web design is anything marketing or advertising wise. So that's a good incentive too, to where if somebody has their own thing going as well, it would kind of make up for those lower months. That way they don't get a part-time job and it's like, well, shoot, I just lost my subcontractor because he needed money and I didn't have anything for him this month.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's a good pro right there. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, if you can help them, in their personal endeavors and whatnot, it's a lot of benefits back to us.
Yeah. Now, how did you mentioned some other subcontractors? Did you find them in the Divi Facebook groups? Or are you doing like anything locally to find people, or how did you come about some of the other people who are getting on board periodically? Yeah,
so most of our social media content, blogging, that type of stuff is not within the Divi community. One of the gals I've been working with for about 3 years now, Dana D'Amato, she is a writer and she was a content creator for one of my clients, and who had a Vegas website, basically a travel destination website, Vegas and some other, like Florida, some places. So she did that type of content for them, and I was really impressed that she could learn about what's going on in a city that's miles away from her and write these great articles. So when I created MontereyBayFun.com, I hired her to write articles in Monterey. Now she's in Florida and I'm in California, but yet she was able to write these great articles, 10 best things to do on Valentine's Day weekend and that type of stuff. So I've been working with her for years. When I created Engaging Work Life, I transitioned her to those articles. And so any of the clients that we get that want our social media packages or content blogging type stuff, she's heads that up for me. And then another gal I recently started working with is local, and I met her through some local networking, and she's more for my local clients that need pictures and photography and someone to go out and actually take photos and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And then our SEO specialist, she's from the Divi community. We've been working together for years, and she was definitely, when the need came up, the first person that I thought of. And that's been great. It's been a great relationship.
Now, with the Divi community, are people inquiring through your website? Like, if you have any opportunities, or are you keeping an eye on people and then messaging them, saying, hey, do you have any availability for a potential product? Because I know I would be very leery to post something in the Divi groups like, hey, I'm hiring, because you're going to have to clear, a week's worth of work just to go through applications and stuff or resumes.
Yeah, I don't post anything in the Divi community when we have needs come up. It's basically either I've been kind of keeping an eye on people for that type of thing, or I'll ask a couple of close friends offline. But yeah, I've been wary of hiring within the Divi community because there are a lot of people that are really hungry to do their own thing in the Divi community. And so it's a little bit different as far as bringing somebody on board to learn all the inside and outs and have access to my business, because there is this, you got to be really careful. Seen a lot of people, take and jump on board something, then turn, and pretty soon they have products that are very similar to yours. And
and same thing with tutorials. Like, I was very intentional when I started, and I told you I think I told you that I was going to start doing tutorials, and I wanted you to make sure that you knew that I wasn't trying to step on your toes or anyone else. I have my own way of doing things, and that's why I'm always very intentional about linking back to tutorials as well, to say like, hey, Geno has a similar tutorial, check this one out as well, see which one suits you. So that's a good kind of heads up too for those in the community, because I see quite a few people post, and I understand if you're in dire straits to like, okay, I got to find somebody to get this done. Or if you're somebody who doesn't, like you, it seems like you wear all the hats just like I do. Like, I do the sales, the marketing, I do all the designing, the coding, and I'm used to, and all the graphics, like I'm used to doing everything. So if I'm ever in a bind, I can generally rely on myself to get it done. But if somebody's just doing sales and marketing and they can't design a Divi site, then of course they need to find somebody, ASAP. So that definitely makes sense to kind of be leery or weary of that, just to be careful.
Yeah, cautious would be the word I use for that. Just be cautious, and I would say build up a relationship first. We do get a lot of people asking for work from all over the place. And so, just be cautious, build up a relationship, see what they do, see how they respond in the community, see what their goals are, their plans, their long-term plans are, because that's going to be important, what their plans are. See, like with Jerry, what was great is he made it clear that his long-term plans were to be the pastor at that church, and that's his ultimate goal. He's not really interested in making a name for himself in the Divi community or the website community. And,
Too late.
Too late. Yeah, exactly. And so, that was cool. It was like, okay, well, and obviously being able to build websites, he loves the flexibility, the schedule, the freedom that allows him to still do what he does. And so if something were to happen to Monterey Premier, or things get slow or whatever, by him deciding, okay, I could do this website design stuff now, and help him build that up so that it's there. Right. But so you got to be careful, because it'd be hard to do that with somebody who's really, their ultimate goal is to create their own business, create their own products. And so it's just, that's fine, but you just got to be aware of that going into it.
Right. Yeah. Great advice, man. Great heads up on that for sure. So I got to ask you the $1 million question, literally, that I'm asking everyone. When you're thinking about hiring somebody or putting some subcontract work out there, do you wait till you have money saved up for that? Or are you kind of accounting for that, saying like, okay, I'm probably going to take a cut in pay by getting somebody on board, or I need to charge a little more to account for that? How do you go about that?
Yeah, for me, I didn't save up for it. When there was a need, as soon as I realized I was plateauing, that I was in a place where I want to grow, but I can't until I find somebody, I started actively seeking it out. And it meant taking some hits on some of the margins that I would normally get to keep. And so I worked with several different individuals on several different projects, from somebody local here that's not in the Divi community, and that didn't quite work out because his goal was to get with a large agency, and as soon as he did, it was hard to get help with the work he had started. And then the few folks I've worked with overseas, there was just too big of a communication gap and too many different hands on my projects that I never expected. I hired one guy and I didn't realize he has about 18 people working for him from different locations and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've had that happen before too. Yeah.
So that just didn't work out, and I took hits and had some losses. And then finding Jerry and finding, okay, where's where's the least amount of technical experience needed that he could help me with to get started with, even though there was no billable. It was going to come straight out of my margins, because it was not billable hours. It was stuff that, but by freeing me up, it allowed me to do more billable hours. So by taking care of the comments on the Genos blog, it may seem minor, but we get 30, 40 comments a day on that thing. And if I don't keep up with them, I'll have, and I don't let them automatically post. I got to review each comment.
Right. Nonetheless, yeah, that's tricky. I know Tim Streifler told me, he's like, man, I have so many comments backed up I've got to get to. I'm like, Tim, you got to take care of that now, man.
I went through 83 today.
Oh, wow. Dang. Yeah, I take care of them daily now that I'm getting traction. I try to knock those suckers out, first thing in the morning or whatever.
Yeah. And so I didn't save up for it. My thinking is this: if you know you're plateauing, if you know that there's potentially more work out there, then bring them in and get that work. And that will make up for it. But my advice is to make sure you're at a point where you are maxed out and you have potential work out there. Now, I think there's a mistake in saying, if I hire more work, I'll get more work. If I hire more people, I should say, I'll get more work. Well, you got to make sure that that's the case. What evidence do you have of that? Now, maybe bringing on somebody strong in sales to help you get or marketing, then that's potentially the case. But there's that's overhead really for the most part that you got to cover. And so, so for me, my approach was, if I could get some of this time of these requirements that I don't have to take care of, so I could focus on sales and marketing and development, billable hours, then it's out there. Yeah, and for me, I had leads coming in.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, because if it's taking you, if you can't even get to a site for 2 weeks, then imagine if somebody could take care of that during that time, and then you just freed yourself up to be able to do more sales, or either do what you do best or do what you need to do as the head of the company, and to actually grow it and take it to new boundaries. And that's kind of one thing I've thought about too, is I love designing websites, and I will for a long time, but there are things that I know I need to focus more attention on, and answering support emails and things like that. It's not that work is not invaluable, but it's just stuff that I know I should not be doing at this point anymore, because I'm taking, and it's just draining the life out of me for doing the big picture stuff,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, between Monterey Premier and all the business dealing I had going on with Genos.co, I could literally spend all day just addressing emails and conversations, because we're constantly, as business owners, we're constantly not just sales, but we have business relationships with other people. And so getting back to people who are reaching out, and then there's the sales, then there's the going back and forth, and then of course there's the technical support and those like fresh leads coming in. So that was the main thing. I could spend all my day in correspondence, and that was the first place I needed help with.
One thing that's really helped me out over the past year is I started trying to templatize any email that I do more than like once or twice. If I catch myself saying the same thing, I make it an email template. And that has really helped me. And I do the same thing. Like if somebody wants a logo design from me, I do logo design and branding as well for clients. But I know that they are not going to want to spend more than $200 on a branding, logo design deal. Then I have this template email that says, we'd be happy to do this. Here's our base price range. If that's going to be too much, then here are some recommendations. And that alone, that kind of thing has saved me tremendously. And I'm starting to do that with my joshhall.co stuff as well. Like I'm getting inquiries on like Wix sites, and I'm like, hey, listen, unless it's something to do with one of my tutorials or my layouts, I can't put myself in an unpaid support position. So I'm trying to do it, and that's really helped me. And even from the business standpoint, like you can really templatize, a lot of emails. I have a maintenance plan as well, and anytime somebody's wondering about the value in that, or if I have a current client that's not seeing, the value of them being on it, I have that same email that goes over the main points, just kind of reaffirms it. So that's just an idea I wanted to throw out there for everyone who, is facing, which we're all facing, several emails. So man, I'm like, make it an email template and save yourself some time for sure.
Yeah, another thing that's helped too is we do the templates as well but we also got a separate form for just about everything. So when it comes in, we know exactly, looking at all the emails, which ones are for white label, which ones are for technical support. And so we could tackle all the new sales lead emails at once, then open up all the white label inquiries at once. And so it'll, my email looks like white label inquiry from, they don't have the person's name, and so each form has its own subject that comes in.
Gotcha.
So that's a big help as well, kind of separating the two, or the multiple different things they're emailing us for. And the templates, we definitely use the templates. And then what I do find is on occasion, I will personalize it a little bit.
Yes.
Providing like maybe a couple, if they're asking, this is what I'm looking for. And I go, these are a couple of things that we could do to your site. And because that makes a big difference, because most people know a template when they see it.
I should clarify that. I'm glad you mentioned that because, I generally always will add in a couple little things here, there, or even just, so for example, I just redid what I call my client resources page, which has tutorial videos on basics of WordPress, basics of Divi, some of my main tools, and I use Gravity Forms, so it goes over kind of the basics of Gravity Forms. Basically, just the questions that all my clients ask me repeatedly. So I have that nice deal there. So what I did was I basically typed up my email template for that, but then I personalized it for each client I sent. So of course I wasn't like, hello, valued client. Here, So of course you personalize it. I always adjust the verbiage to however I talk to them.
Yeah.
But the meat and potatoes of the email was a template. So that's a good call. Great call.
And the other thing about those templates is it helps filter out people who aren't serious. One of the things we do, because we get leads, all people are just fishing for different prices, and they're going to go with the cheapest. So right off the bat, we let them know our rate, and at the high end of the rate, and if they're somewhat interested, to get a general idea of. Typically, obviously, the response is, well, we got to learn more about your project before we could give you an estimate, right?
And say, I want. That's the biggest struggle, man. This may be something we'll have to save for another series, because I want to go into that in detail, because I struggle with the same thing. I don't know how many times, particularly with doing a fixed project rate, and I don't show my pricing out on the site. You can spend a lot of time putting tutorial or proposals together, and you can burn 10 hours meeting with somebody and going back and phone calls and emails, and then it just not work out. Now, one thing I've started doing is I'm actually creating what I'm dubbing a crappy client weed out page. I don't know if I'm going to call it that. Maybe I will, just to really get rid of some of those people. But basically what I'm going to do is, if it's somebody who's like a personal lead from a friend who I think is going to be a really good client, like you mentioned, it's like, okay, I want that business.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really good client. I would love to get them. Then, of course, I'm not going to send them to that page that just lays out my rates. But if it's someone that's brand new and I'm just like, maybe I don't have the best feeling, is I might send them to that weed out page that just tells them, look, here's our process. Here's some estimates of main price ranges. Like if you want a 5-page portfolio site, it's, in this range. If you want something that has products, it's in this range. So that's kind of one thing I'm working on that I hope will help everyone as well, is just kind of filtering out those weeds. Because that does come into play when you're scaling, because you can't scale if you're just doing proposals all day.
Yeah, big time. And you want to be able to get back to them. And so, we for our general template, we let them know, obviously we need to connect to learn more, but here's how we typically work. Our hourly rate is $150 an hour, and a typical 10-page website, this is how many hours we put into the homepage and the design. And so then for each additional page is usually about an hour. So a typical website could cost around this much. We do have some alternative things and blah, blah, blah. So we do that. And it really helps because, and then we do one follow-up, to find out, where they're at and if they found somebody else or whatnot.
Gotcha.
So we don't necessarily just leave them hanging out there. Before I used to, but, with the right help, we try to at least respond once or twice to get a follow-up if they're still interested.
Well, and it seems like what you've done with child themes, too, is that you're offering some of those cheaper solutions if somebody just has $500, right? Like you can set them up with a child theme and, if they're empowered enough, they could probably make their way through it.
Yeah, and that's been very successful for us. The template packages, we call them.
Okay.
So when I'm talking to a client and the price is kind of high, I let them know, well, here's another alternative. We have these pre-built templates, and if there's any of these templates you like, then the price is reduced by a couple $1,000s. And so our price ranges start from $499 on up to $2,000. We have 4 different things, options. And it's basically a landing page option. Then there's the 5 pages option where we update the content and the images and the colors for up to 5 pages. The 10 page, and then the 10 page plus 5 additional customization hours, which is usually for clients who have a custom functionality they need, like a booking plugin or something like that.
That's a great way to format all that. And again, it kind of empowers me because I'm thinking about that too. It'd be nice to be able to have, instead of just sending some of those clients on their way. And it's understandable if it's a pizza shop that just wants a website for $1,000 or something, then they're not going to be able to afford a big custom deal. But if you have some child themes or template, what did you call it? Template styles?
I called it template packages.
Template packages, because that's probably good from a client perspective, because they have no idea what the heck a child theme is.
Or a layout kit, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things we learned with that, though, too, is we're doing something different. Even though right now our templates consist of layout packs that I've created and child themes that our team has created. What we're doing, though, is we're going to move away from using actual child themes, and we don't use layout kits for any of our client projects. It's just too much time to go in there and update modules and settings and stuff like that. So we're moving, and the child theme with all the custom functionality. So what we're doing is we're recreating all of those for our template clients, where everything is going to be in the style sheet. So we're not using any of we won't, with the exception of the customizer. We won't be going into any of the modules or rows or anything like that. Whereas child themes and layout kits, we use a lot more of that because our end users are Divi users. And so we make that clear with the clients, because the way we're able to turn it to update colors and that kind of stuff, to do it all in one place at one time is minutes, whereas the other 2 methods are hours.
Yeah, and then of course, if you update something in the style sheet and it's like, why isn't this working? And you forgot about that module code.
One module. So our goal this year is to build up that template library. So you won't see a lot of this year's templates as child themes or layout kits. They'll only be for our template-only packages. We want to see that library grow larger than the child theme marketplace.
Now, is that a kind of a plan B? Do you advertise that? Because I imagine a lot of clients will say, like, well, why do you want to pay me $5,000 when you have this $1,000 template? Is that kind of like, since if this is too much, we do offer this template style. Is that how you go about that? Or
pretty much. It's our backup plan for anybody who says that's a little bit too high.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and we catch a lot of people that way. That's our overflow right there. So people we would normally lose, I would say we probably get now about we're up to 40% of capturing those people who don't fit into our main funnel. Whereas before we were letting all of that go.
So you're still, you're monetizing, you're profiting from people who you were just letting go before. I mean, that can add a lot to a business if you're able to, and it still helps them, as opposed to trying, if they really want to work with Geno, but they just don't have the budget, that still gives them an option, at least from your work and your expertise in the initial build from that child theme or whatever. Yeah, it's a great plan. Because I do the same thing with my maintenance plan. I just have one. I know you have a few different tiers, and I thought about doing that, but one thing that has worked for me over the past year is I just have a $59 plan, and if a client doesn't want it, I have a $39 plan, which is just the once a week backups, updates, and just some basic stuff. So I'm still making money on it, but they're they kind of feel like they're getting a deal because they're like, okay, well, for whatever reason, 39 sounds a lot better than 59, and it works out. So that's kind of worked out for me. It's kind of that same mindset.
That is cool. I will share this too. One of the things that has kind of surprised me, but you know how we do a lot of white label work. We got a lot of clients that do web design, or they want to. But they're not there yet as far as skill set or whatnot. Or they might be focused on marketing or IT, but they want to offer this as a service. So a lot of them really want fixed pricing so that they can go to their client and give them a fixed price. And so this has been great for them. And lately, most of our white label clients who are web designers are using the template package deals, because that way they have a set price. And what we've done is we've marked those down for them. So
okay, so you get like a discounted rate if they're
for our white label. If they're going to bring new business, go out and do the sales work for us. So what might be $2,000 to the end user might only be $1,500 for them, so that they can mark it up to $2,000, go out and sell a $2,000 website to a mom and pop shop in their area. And so that's been really successful. And we've cranked out a lot of custom projects out of those template packages for white label companies.
Gotcha. That's a great model, man, for sure. Hey, Geno, how are you doing on time, by the way? I didn't know if you had to...
I'm good.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So we'll keep this within a few hours here. All right, so tell me, since you kind of talked about how Jerry and you are managing email, let's talk practically about tools. Do you have him in your main business email, or do you guys, are you using Slack or anything like that to communicate? What's that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so we're set up on Gmail. We love G Suites and the tools that are in there. So, we each have our independent emails, and we share the support email. So he does most of the management of that, but I'm in there every day looking at everything coming in and seeing his responses. I'm getting copied on the responses so that I could jump in if I feel like I need to jump in on something. Typically, he'll let me respond to the sales. These days, when I get really busy, he just goes ahead and responds if he sees that I haven't responded to one of the sales ones. But he gives me the first chance to respond because I tend to, again, it's good when I can respond to them because the clients appreciate that because they know my name. So I try to do that when I can, but pretty much anything that's so we share that. We share the Gmail screen, and we use Slack on a daily basis just to communicate. It's our way of we probably communicate almost every day, weekday, Monday through Friday on Slack.
Okay, so you're clearing out your emails or Facebook messages and stuff like that, right?
Yes,
for internal communication.
Yeah, we pretty much only use Slack for internal communication. We only email each other when we're forwarding something that needs to be seen. Or can you take care of this? I'll get an email directly to me and I'll forward it to him. But we rarely communicate via email or any other method. It's
gotcha.
90% Slack.
Now, do you guys, when you said, Jerry might answer a support email, do you have any sort of project management or to-do list, or how do you make sure, what if you looking at an email and you think, okay, I'll get to that in an hour, but then you forget and then Jerry thinks you already got it, then it could slip through the cracks. How do you manage, do you have anything that is a queue for those or anything like that?
Yeah, no, for the emails, just for the stuff coming in, the new stuff, the random inquiries and stuff, like I said, he manages most of that. If I do respond to one, I'll CC him, but if he gets to emails and I haven't responded to any of them, he will go ahead and take care of it.
Okay.
So he's sort of like my cleanup. He makes sure that if I didn't get a chance to get to it today, he'll make sure that somebody gets to it today, and that's him.
I think that's something Jerry should put in his email signature personally. Geno's cleanup. I think that should be the title on his business card. Really make him feel special, man.
I think he'd prefer that I let him respond sometimes, because sometimes I'm a little short, or I'll throw something off or get us in trouble, say something wrong. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, but we do use Basecamp. I know he likes Asana, but I love Basecamp, and so we use that for all our projects, to-do lists, tasks. So if anything has become more than just an inquiry or a lead, I use Basecamp for our leads. I have one account in my Basecamp that's called leads. So we keep track of all the leads coming in, and we're able to set a follow-up date for each lead. And they're all set as tasks in this one particular list. And then what we do is, in the comments of that task, any feedback going back and forth, we'll put in the comments of that task so that any one of us can open up a lead and see where they're at. Now, there's other tools out there. It's not necessarily made for that.
Right.
But what I like about that is once that has become a full-on project, I can just push that task over to the project, and all the history is there. And since we're using Basecamp for that, for the projects, all the initial correspondence is there as an individual task.
Wow, I'm encouraged by that because I use Basecamp as well. I've never tried Asana. I know a lot of people use Trello for more of the task management, but that's a very creative way to use Basecamp because, yeah, you can use it as a task manager and a to-do list checker. And that's really, I didn't really think about that, about using that for leads and then also for tasks that you could eventually kind of segue into a project, and then it's all there without having to go in and put all of your emails that were in a thread and stuff like that.
Exactly.
That's a really useful point. Are you on Basecamp 2 or are you using 3?
I'm using 3 now. It took me a while, but
now that it's a whole new deal, right? Don't you have to like re-sign up? It's not like an upgrade.
Yeah, it's not an upgrade. No, it's 2 different accounts. So I finally made the switch over about 4 months ago.
Okay.
To 3, and really digging in and figuring out the best way to use it. And so I love how you can have projects and teams. So for the teams, I have a team called Sales and Marketing, and in that team I have several to-do lists. One is Geno's leads. The other one is Jerry's leads. And so I got about 20 in there that I need to go through. And each one is set up as a task, like I said, and has a due date. That due date is when I'm going to follow up on. So when I do look at all my tasks, all of them, I see my leads and my project tasks. And it's like having everything in one place. And it's made a big difference. So, yeah. And
worth it for me? Would you encourage me to upgrade to 3, or do you think 2 will suffice for a while? Because I think the pricing is a little bit more too, if I recall.
It is a bit more. I really like the reporting in 3, and so that's grown on me. And so I can look at what's coming up for just me in a nice detailed by day list. I can look at Jerry's as well. You can do that with 2. I don't remember if it has as many reports or not.
Yeah, I've never used the reporting. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so the reporting, what I love about the reporting is I can click on, I have these different places bookmarked, so I don't have to go through the Basecamp menus. So I can click on leads, see all the leads, Jerry's and mine. I can click on what's coming up, and it'll show me everything that's coming up Tuesday, everything that's coming up Wednesday, Friday, and then whose task it is. And I can say, just show mine or just show Jerry's. And then I could say, what's overdue, and it'll show me all the overdue tasks. And so I like that. I can come in, see, okay, what's going on today. So between that and my Google Calendar, I'm able to track everything.
Okay.
And I use my Google Calendar. I wish I could show you this, but I use my Google Calendar to keep track of all my projects that are active, on hold, pending client, and I'll schedule them out for, I'll have it as an event that lasts 6 weeks.
Oh, okay.
And it's all color coordinated, so I can see which ones are on hold because they're orange and they're going across the week. So I can look at this and see all my projects that we have going on right now.
So you're not managing the calendar and to-do dates in Basecamp. You're doing that in Google, but you're using Basecamp as far as team management, tasks, to-do lists, and stuff like that. Gotcha.
Yes.
Very cool. Good system. That's great. That's great to know for sure. Because I'm not utilizing the calendar very well. And one thing, because the subcontracting I've done hasn't been that extensive, so I've more or less managed it through either just adding them on the team side of Basecamp or just email. But as I start to scale and as I start to grow, I know that I really need to systematize that. And I think one thing I've been encouraged by this series to do is, even as a one-man shop, to templatize or systematize all of that now before you get a team. Because if you get your stuff in place, they're going to fall in line. Like you said with Jerry, if he's familiar with Asana, but you use Basecamp, it just kind of, it is what it is depending on who you're working with. And I'm trying to get my clients to do that a little more too. Of course, some clients are notorious for emailing, and this year I'm making it a mandatory deal that I am not going to answer business texts. Since my cell phone is my main business number, last year wasn't too bad, but years previous, I would get texts all the time. I get texts at 10 o'clock on a Friday night that something needs updated. I'm like, what are you doing on I don't know. And then, so, sometimes I remember getting texts at 2:33 in the morning for updates.
Man.
And I'm like, do they really think I'm going to be okay with that? Like, I would never do that.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm really trying to force all communication there. And on Basecamp, you can, of course, email back in your email and it'll show up. But I'm really trying to work on my clients for that as well. But it sounds like from a team perspective, that's going to be huge, going to be crucial.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I like about it is, what I like about Basecamp is it's not super complicated like some of the other ones. I mean, if you're just starting out with a pretty small team, you're not asking them to learn an entirely new system. It's pretty basic as far as figuring out how to use it. So it's just them getting familiar with it. And if you... It is a great tool for keeping track of everything. Yeah. I love it.
And I think I'm even, with what I just did with my client resources page, with my training videos for my clients, I think I'm going to do the same thing for internal uses as well. I might have like an internal, and it may even segregate that. I don't know if you've done anything like that with video tutorials, but I might do that like, here are tutorials on how we manage the products. Here are tutorials on how, you could do, of course, a whole category-wise one with web design, but that's a really good point as well.
Yeah,
good inspiration there.
Having those videos is a great idea, for onboarding. Simplifying that onboarding process as much as possible. Even if you have like just an internal pages for your staff, how you handle these kinds of calls, how you handle these kinds of emails, how you handle. One of the things I did for a company I worked for is I moved over to their collections department because they had a high turnover rate, and yet the training process was pretty extensive. It would take a couple of weeks before somebody's actually making live collections calls because they needed it to be a sales-oriented call and not just a hard collections call.
Okay.
And so how do we increase and so because it's a high turnover rate, because the people are just making calls, they were at a university town, and they focused on getting university students who can work these random flexible hours because it's going to have a high turnaround rate. So my job was to reduce the amount of onboarding time. And what we did is we just created a page for every type of scenario that they're going to come across, so that they can actually access it real time without having to ask or look at a book or something like that. And so with the onboarding process, I think that's a real opportunity to reduce that onboarding time by documenting all your procedures on an internal website.
Yeah, that's a great inspiration with that, because it goes back to that whole, if you're going to do something more than once, you might as well make it a tutorial or make it a template and systematize it. And I know the term systematizing gets a bad rap, and it probably makes some creatives feel like they're going to wear a suit and get in the corporate world, but systematizing just frees you up to do what you want to do, bottom line. So it's huge.
Exactly.
Man. Awesome, Geno. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say we're doing something similar. I work with the Marina Chamber of Commerce, our local Chamber of Commerce, and we've recently rebuilt the entire website, and it allows chamber members to log in and change their profile on the business directory and add events and that type of stuff. And so it's been very challenging for a lot of them to learn a new system. They're not familiar with doing it. So we've started creating these training pages, instructional pages, to help them with their experience. It makes it easy for us to send them a link.
Nice.
And so, doing that for your team is actually, most people don't think about doing that, but it's the same thing as setting up policies and procedures. Do them on an internal website. That way it's easy to update, accessible to everybody on your team. And I think that's a real tool for people that are going to start scaling.
Awesome. Well, Geno, this has been great, man. This has been a really good talk. I really appreciate you taking out a lot of time to talk about this and being transparent with where you're at and kind of everything you have going on, and particularly your experience with how you kind of came into the Divi community, kind of made the business out of that, and then sky's the limit from there, man. It sounds like it's continuing. Do you have any, before we maybe ask for like a final thought, where are you headed with Monterey Premier? Are you going to continue to try to scale it more, or are you pretty content with where things are right now?
Scale, baby, scale. I'm always open to for me, whatever God's doing with the business, and we recently started a church plant, and that's pretty time consuming, and in time, that will take up more of my time. So where we're going with Monterey Premier, I'm still not 100% sure, but for right now, until anything changes, as we're going to continue the pace we're going, we're going to focus on increasing our web design service business. We're looking at ways, how do we reach a larger audience than just Divi, and what audience do we want to reach out to? We're
Dreamweaver audience.
A Wix.
Yeah.
We're navigating the waters with Gutenberg. I believe that that's going to bring a lot of industry change. I believe that's going to, in fact, probably even fraction the WordPress community a little bit.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at that. And but I also believe, my instinct tells me that when Gutenberg comes out, people are worried about losing business, but I believe that it's going to be technical enough to where there's going to be more business, because people who are using WordPress as a blogging platform won't have that easy to use platform anymore.
Yes.
Now, because it's going to be design oriented.
Yep.
So
and it goes back to that whole design, and people don't know how to make something that converts. I had a client a few years ago who I did a quote for, and he's kind of a friend who I knew, and he's a savvy guy, and instead of going with me, he just went with his own Wix site, and he told me, he's like, are you worried about this putting you out of business? And at first I was, but I can't tell you how many clients I've gotten who have tried to go Wix and tried to go Squarespace and failed miserably, and they're so frustrated, and they're just like, you know what, screw it, I'll pay whatever. I just want it to be professional, and I don't want to worry about it. And so for me, it's actually been like a business lead generator, because it's not as easy as it sounds. Unless you're savvy, unless you're design oriented, it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go.
Yeah, unless you have that much free time on your hands running your business,
right?
But you got an extra 20 hours a week to learn how to use that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it ain't going to happen. And so I agree with all the changes that are coming. I believe that there's lots of opportunities to grow in the web design, web development area. As far as products go and stuff, we'll just have to wait and see when the dust settles, when Divi slows down a little bit with all the feature updates and stuff like that, and what Gutenberg does to the existing products. We're still not sure yet, and there might be some major changes on the horizon for Divi products. Yeah. So we're going to kind of wait and test the waters before we dive headlong into building new products or anything like that.
Gotcha.
So, but we'll continue to take on other products in the marketplace, continue to market it. We want to see that grow as well. And, so we'll probably be, I believe, at this rate in a position to bring on some more people by the end of this year.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Very cool, Geno. Well, do you have any final parting thoughts to anybody who's in my kind of situation, where it's like a one-man shop, you're wanting to go to that next level, or even somebody who's, Josh from 3 years ago, who is, just getting into the web design game, but knows they want to free themselves up to do what they want to do? Any kind of final tips or thoughts?
Yeah, well, I would say to the Divi community at large that's listening to this, and you're getting your feet in the water, you're pretty excited, maybe you use Divi for your own business, and you realize that, hey, I could help other businesses do this, is I would say, jump in there and go for it, get your name out there, but give away and help people out, become an authority in your area, in your region, in your local community. You can also become an authority in the greater Divi community online as well, but it takes time, and it takes blood, sweat, and tears. It takes effort. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to build a product and have 1 million sales. In fact, I would say products should be more about helping you build authority and establish yourself in learning than it is about a quick buck, because that won't happen until people are familiar with you. So know that it's going to be going to pace yourself. Don't get frustrated. It takes time. But as soon as you see that there's potential work for you, don't wait till you can afford to bring on somebody. Always be looking for that relationship. Always be looking for that partner, because you never know where you're going to find that person who's going to help you out. And it may not even be within the Divi community, maybe in your neighborhood and maybe in a WordPress meetup. WordPress meetups are great for finding people to collaborate with. But always be looking for that. Don't wait till you're ready, then just put something out there, because you never know. When you find the right person, start small. Like I did with Jerry, and say, I can maybe offer you a couple hours a week. And if it's going to work out, that those couple of hours will turn into 20, 30, 40 hours a week if it's a right fit. So always be looking for the right fit for you personally.
Awesome. That's great, Geno. Really, really good stuff, man. Well, thanks so much for taking the time, man. This has been a blast. I've got some other series in the works as well, so we might have to do another round on this, maybe talking about onboarding and weeding out clients and all that good stuff. So.
Yeah, that sounds great, man. Thanks for having me on, Josh. It's been a pleasure conversing with you on these things, and I love your insight as well. I've learned a lot just talking to you and hearing about your perspective, so thank you for doing these videos.
Awesome, man. Talk to you soon, Geno. Thanks.
Talk to you soon, Josh. Take care. Cheers.